Danger for self-driving cars. A new study suggests they could be easily hacked and cause gridlock on the streets of major cities with just the push of a button. Scientists with the Georgia Institute of Technology say hackers could find serious vulnerabilities in internet-connected cars and their central computing systems, and that hacking just one car at a time could easily halt traffic. Hacking multiple cars on several major streets would be gridlock. Study also says while a widespread hack hasn't happened yet, the potential for serious problems is slowly rising with each new connected car that hits the road. So let's talk about this study with David Yanni, a student researcher at the Georgia Institute of Technology. He worked on the study and joins me via Skype from Atlanta. David, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
So tell me more about this study. I mean, everyone seems to be anticipating the widespread use of self-driving cars, but your study is one big warning about the danger.
So we studied what happens when a large-scale hack targets internet-connected cars, lots of them all at once. And what we found is pretty alarming. You get a totally fractured city where drivers, including EMTs and firefighters, can't reach their destinations due to blocked roads. So, yeah.
Well, so then how would a hacker get access to a self-driving car? I mean, would the components and the operating systems be on a cloud or somewhere or on a remote computer?
So there are a lot of intelligent, hardworking cybersecurity professionals that are trying to prevent a hack from happening in the first place, and that's an important first line of defense. What the approach that we took is trying to assess and mitigate the risk to city infrastructure, assuming that a hack somehow does happen in the first place. It's been shown that hackers can get access to internet-connected cars already.
Well, that's a scary thought to think about, because if they get access to the computers and the driving mechanisms, I mean, anything could happen. Your study talks about what would happen, though, if a hacker stalled just 20 self-driving cars in a busy city like where I am in New York. It would be gridlock if that happened, right?
It could be gridlock. So we also suggest some practical solutions moving forward. So, for example, if all of the Toyotas get hacked, if their communications network gets hacked, for example, it could be about 10% of the cars on the road. But if Toyota were to use redundant communication networks that are each compartmentalized so that they have, let's say, 5 or 10 different networks, then if one of them gets hacked, there's only a much smaller number of vehicles that are affected.
So how do we protect against this? I mean, is it up to the car makers, or should the government get involved here?
I think it's going to be probably a joint approach between the government, car manufacturers. Right now, we're still at the phase where we're trying to study and assess the risk and move forward with proposing possible strategies to prevent this.
So do you think self-driving cars are a bad idea? Are they too vulnerable to hacking and other dangers being out on the road?
Absolutely not. We definitely believe in the promise of self-driving cars in the future and all the benefits they're going to bring. We just think that we need to go in clear-eyed about the risks that are involved and understand them so that we can eventually mitigate them.
Well, you certainly warned us. I mean, I don't think I'll ever think of a self-driving car again in terms of, the dangers out there. If a hacker were to get, as you said, Toyota or Hondas, I mean, those are primarily the cars that you see in major cities, these compact cars that are popular. What does it say about those cars? I mean, should we be kind of trying to outthink the hackers by, focusing on other cars, other makes and models?
I didn't want to. Toyota was just an example because it's very common. Yeah, a common car. I think that it's going to be up to manufacturers, all manufacturers, to think about not only trying to prevent hacks in the first place, but setting up infrastructure of their communications networks to minimize risk of, once a hack actually happens, there are going to be cyber physical consequences, and we need to think about mitigating those.
So what's the next step in your study? I mean, do you take this a step further and try to present this to the automakers, or where do you go from here?
So our next steps are definitely further research and trying to flesh out strategies. So we've identified the risk and proposed some rough outlines of strategies to mitigate it. And our next steps are definitely still in the research area, trying to test out different strategies.
All right. Well, we'll be looking out for where this study goes from here in terms of these self-driving cars and the potential for hacking. Student researcher David Yanni, thanks for being here on Take 30.
Thanks.
Finally tonight, there's a black moon in the sky, but most of us won't see it. A black moon occurs when the moon's Earth face